We look at it, it looks really fantastic. You a big round of applause for Penny and Jean.
Yeah, is there any lights for the wall?
Turn the lights down and put some light in the audience.
It's good to see who you're talking to.
You don't want me.
You do.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if there is. Is there any lights we can put in the audience? We could turn those around if you can reach them. That might cause a bit of an accident. We'll have to start.
All right.
They get round to doing that.
And can people at the back hear me talking without a microphone?
Can you hear? Louder now.
I just hate I don't like these things.
You spent all your life in the studio with them.
Yeah, I don't mind. I don't mind that. Oh, all right.
Oh, well, it's not that hard.
Well, it's a removal. That's why I don't like it.
I know. They
It's
can't
a
hear
sort
it.
of condom on the language.
It's even more of a removal without it, because only 10 people can hear you.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So, okay, the book. So, why have you done the book?
I did the book because, sorry. Once the band had finished, I would say about 8 years after, I thought, we need to put everything into one. Because there were handouts and posters, tickets, photos, blah, blah, blah. So, having done that, I realised we didn't have much because we couldn't all it. So it was a matter of clawing it back, basically, thanks to maybe a lot of people here. And of course, I said to myself I'd do it, and I kind of don't give up. So it took a long while.
Did you have any archives at all?
A little bit, yes. Little, but I mean, a lot of it was really in the hands of the people at the time.
I think I was one of the big problems because
Yes.
I'm a very
Really?
anti-archiver. I like burning things. And
I had to squirrel things away.
yeah, so anything that arrives now gets hidden somewhere in case I give it to someone or I burn it. So I wasn't a great help. And I have to say I wasn't a great help during any of the project. I sort of
No rubbish.
stood by in wonderment and rather wonder why I'm sitting in this seat right now. But we're fine.
So is a book project an awkward project for you then, Penny?
The past is an awkward project for me. I don't do past. I'm sort of. It's hard enough dealing with them now, and that's good enough for me, sort of thing. So I had a huge respect for what Dee did, and I think it's a beautiful piece of work. But it's certainly something that I have to admit to not having been interested and not being very helpful.
But it's not it's not a nostalgic book. I think a lot of the handouts and bits of writing and all the stuff that's in there is still so relevant. So it's not as if you're harking back to something that doesn't exist. We all know the world at the moment is.
I sort of changed my mind that we did a couple of these things at the horse hospital, and it was the response of the people which was warm, incredibly warm. And then I got the point. I really didn't get the point, but when I saw how much joy actually it was bringing to people, then I thought, yeah, great project. Yeah.
You have re-released a lot of the old records. Would you see that as a different context because it's musical instead of pictorial?
I think it's a matter of making good, actually. The opportunity to remaster stuff, particularly the 7-inch taken up to 12-inch, which was the project of all the bands that we worked with. And that was very rewarding because at last people could actually hear as they were in the studio, because everything was so squashed on 7 inches that really was pretty unlistenable, especially
Well,
by
I think
today's
that's the same
standards.
with the Crass stuff.
Yeah.
The Crass LP, there was so much stuff in there, which obviously ground on took much longer than it should have. And I think, redoing them all, just depend, remastering it just opened it all up. And I think they sound fantastic. Much more like it should be.
In a sense, is the book similar to that? A way of getting the images, the photographs, the flyers, the posters. You kind of remix them so you can actually see them and contextualise them.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was quite interesting. I've forgotten quite a lot of them. So when people said to me, they're very, I still think they're very relevant, and I think they're of great interest to the next generation. And I think the next generation will only hope for the future, so it's kind of like adding more to that. So having listened to the people that were around at the time and how much they got from what we were doing and sharing, I think it's fantastic for the next generation now running with it, expressing it in their way. And I think that's really, I don't know what gives it, isn't it?
Do you think that because the fact that this actually is still really relevant, it's quite frustrating in a way? So wouldn't it be great if it just seemed like this weird era from 40 years ago, and the world was so good now that we need not to do this?
I still think, even if you haven't changed anything, the battle is still important.
Well,
Keep fighting.
I think we have changed something, not Crass, but I mean, that generation is a generation that we are changing things. The fact that that doesn't fit into the narrative is irrelevant. We are what's happening. I hate that thing. Nothing's happening at the moment. That's meant to be. Go out in the street and sort of guys and girls sort of playing music, and having fun, making something of life. That it isn't just the sort of depressing tale of what we're given by the standard media. So there wasn't anything particularly special about Crass or that era. It's just part of a whole thing that goes on and on and on and will always go on. And it had gone on for a long time before Crass or anyone like that came along. It's been happening and will continue to happen. Because basically, they're creative beasts. That's the one thing that humans have, probably above any other animal, is this sense of creativity. That's what gives us joy. That's our deep sharing. That's our deep love, and that's unbreakable. AI won't destroy it. Nothing can destroy that beautiful sense of passage through creativity.
Do you think the book is a reminder of that?
It's more than a reminder, I think.
Well, from the reaction of people, I would say, it's spurred them on to say something, do something, create something. It's reminded them that they have enormous untapped potential. And so we know that society and everything else is always trying to take that potential away from you and guide you into one linear route in your life, and that's not like it. It's like, if it's reminded people to say, think outside the box, just go somewhere else, with your head. You don't have to go with the way society tells you, or school tells you, family tells you, whatever it is. You have it, everyone here has enormous potential, untapped potential. And I think that's really what's going to guide us through all the crap.
Because ultimately, this is the great thing about Crass. It was a very positive, empowering message. That was in the records, and is that something that you try to say in the book as well?
No, I just collated it chronologically and let it speak.
So you didn't have any sense of the narrative before you started. It basically is as logical as just doing it in order.
No, I didn't manipulate it in any way.
When you're doing it, does it give you the sense of what Crass and Dial House, which ultimately is the mothership, isn't it, of the whole thing? Does it give you another sense of what that was?
No, not really. I've got really cool with but I have to keep going. I mean, no. I mean, I realise where I live. I realise, you know, who my friends are. I realise, you know, what's, you know, that we're all in this together, if you like, you know, and no, it was pretty hard work for me. I had enough of Crass.
I mean, did you have like years when you detached from all that stuff?
Yeah, there was a few years where I was busy with other things. But you
Which
know,
of course
as I say,
you still do.
I decided to do it, so I had to finish it.
So, I mean, why did you decide to do it? Was there any specific reason? Or?
Well, just to collate everything together, really, so people didn't have to keep asking the same question.
I think there's a bit of a door closing as well. I mean, I feel now having
Yeah.
remastered just about everything that we did. I mean, I'm sure there's a few left of it. And that can't be better. And that's why I did the remastering in the first place in 2010, I think. I started when we were still with Sub. And I heard how good mastering was then. It's even better now. But I don't think you can go further than that with that material. So door closed. That's it. You know, and that, not to shut people out, but say, well, this is the best we can do, and we were always attempting to do the best we could do. And that's
That's why we finished in 84. We couldn't say it any other way. It'd just be repetitive. You know, I couldn't make my words say it more clear. You know, it's just that's it. Enough. You know, I can't. You know, otherwise we'd just be milking it really. And I wasn't interested. None of us were interested. So I think the book has said its closure. Not to close the book, but to inspire.
It kind of makes sense that it ends on the book, because another amazing thing about Crass was it wasn't just the music, was it? It was the art, the aesthetic, the ideas. It was a package, wasn't it? A 360 package. I mean, everybody in this audience remembers unpacking those records was an experience.
Yeah, I think it was very important because, you know, we don't all relate to creativity the same way. Some people are much more music orientated, words, poetry, you know, so we tried to cover so it would speak to everybody in some way. I mean, some people love the artwork, they hated the music. Some people didn't, particularly like, you know, the imagery and love the music. It kind of goes on and on. So yeah, it was trying our best in every creative way that we could at that time. Yeah.
I think most people find it difficult to not have both. I think they all work together absolutely perfectly. I think it's rare to get that simplicity of ideas, visuals, music. You know, in a time which is like not that techy either, was it? Because we're talking about
There's no digital now.
it's a kitchen table thing. It's kind of homemade, but it has a sophistication.
Yeah, I mean it's a totally different world when you look at the original artwork. You know, when you're sort of laying out 36 by 24 cover, you know, with 6 squares and sticking bits of paper on and doing bits. I mean, people can't believe it if you come from another age now. You know, it's kind of like, well, how do you do a cover like that? Well, you just cut off bits and stick it on with it. That's what you do. And I don't think it's any different now. And that's the joy of it. If you want to make a cover and you want to make it by hand, it's all there. You don't need a machine. You don't need all of that. You really don't. And you can scan that afterwards if you want, because obviously the printers want a file now. They don't want flat artwork. They can't handle it. And if they do, it's going to cost an enormous amount of money. So you have to make a file. Even though I don't work on the screen in the terms of making a piece of collage, I have to then scan it, make a file, send it to the printer. It's made of the piece, but it doesn't take away my creativity in the studio. Because to me, it's, you know, doing it at hand and my hand.
I think we were very lucky to be at art school in the 60s, early 60s. when everything was done by hand. I mean, there wasn't even records at that. And so you learn the trade in a very hard working way. And I know Christian of Bracket Press, who does all our a lot of our typewriting. He trained with lead, so he knows the art. So when he goes digital, he's still thinking in that way, which is why his typography is so absolutely beautiful. Everybody knows his stuff. I think that's a really, really beautiful, profound layering of type. And that's a sort of enigma nowadays, sort of, what's that about? You just press the button and it's there. Well, it really isn't. And so, I feel very lucky that we were at art school in the days where everything was hand done. And you found new ways that way. And also, you were actually designing type. I mean, that was one of the projects we did in the art school. We had to design an alphabet. Now you can get Crass on bloody online, can't you? Use, which actually isn't
Crass
the correct one. It's a Crass one, which it isn't actually the same as the one that we use. Anyway.
So art school is it fascinating background, so it created practicality, and also did create ideas and possibilities that fed into what Crass became.
Well, we had actually this circle round the singles was when we left art school, while G was doing a lot of book illustration, and I was getting the sort of dog ends to do occasionally. And on one occasion, I had to do something called the blue tomato. So I did a blue tomato, and then round it, I put a circle with stencil lettering with the title, and that's actually the origin of how the one that came out for the 7-inch singles. And that was really a rip-off of American. Jasper Johns who used a lot of stencil work. Anyway, one of the American pop artists. And so that was a rip. What we were.
Yeah, well, I was thinking in that space, because art school thing is different now, but I read a lot about the 60s, and art schools are a space where ideas could ferment. And so not just the idea, the practicality of the artwork and the music coming out of those spaces, but the aesthetic and the possibilities of art, with the feeding into Crass. Would you say the art schools was a direct line or not?
No, it was definitely a direct line because most of us in the band had been to art school in some way. I mean, we were doing ceramics or graphics or illustration, printing. So yeah, all but two people in the band hadn't been to art school. But one of those people could draw very well, just a natural ability.
Was the atmosphere in the art schools in the 60s, for want of a better word, revolutionary or?
Oh yeah, because we started in 61, so, and art school was for 5 years then, and then the next for 3 years, not like now. And you have to learn anything in that such a short time they give you now. So yeah, I mean, 68, everything exploded, as we know, in Paris and London, even there. Yeah, it was very exciting time, really.
And it was the beginning of the sort of pop art era, which sort of revolutionised in a way. Certainly it was a revolutionary step. And that whole period anyway everything was up for question in the 60s. There wasn't a thing you said yes to until you'd said no to it. Sort of,
I think you have to remember what it was like before the 60s, because musically it was like, I don't know, Ebony Brothers and Ruby Murray and people like that. It's kind of like there was nothing really. It was just still remnants of the war. So kind of then things started to pick up. Obviously Elvis came along and Bill Haley and everything ticked off, and the Beatles, Stones, so it was the Beatles started and the Stones when they were at art school.
So it was a sense of possibility, there was an optimism. the art schools, or a questioning as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I
But
think,
not with everybody, but of course. Not.
I think there was a general sense of optimism, right across the board. So much. I mean, women were beginning to really pick up. For example, I mean, that was unthinkable in the 50s. And suddenly in the 60s, the whole gay community started coming out to a degree, etc. The whole racial thing started being looked at. Everything really now sort of almost take for granted was actually up for question, up for debate, and sometimes really fiery debate. And we really thought then, as we did, that we were going to change the world then. And like the events in Paris, etc. Sort of, in a way, put an end to it. It became too serious for the powers that be, so let's close it down somehow. And they succeeded, and in a way, the same sort of thing happened in around about the 20s here. And go on struggling for the next front to arrive. And I think that front is forever there and currently growing.
I think you have to remember the hippie era, because the hippie actually ushered in the questioning of yourself, health, herbs, cooking, and God knows what else that came from that whole hippie rise, and you could say that we were very influenced by that, because suddenly you was kind of thinking like, oh, what am I eating? Why am I not treating myself here when I'm sick? All of that came from that whole hippie scene, and gradually through the ecology, the building of your own homes, a shed somewhere. And a lot of it obviously didn't translate to Britain because it's too small. I can always remember the long flowing floral skirts, which were dragging in the mud. You went out, not like California at all. Didn't quite work. But I mean, a lot of that washed off on people here. And as much as the punk said, you're just hippies, yeah, we were. But we took a lot from that and ran with it and used it our own way. It's very important.
Well, it actually made sense in the punk generation as well. So in a way, would you say you were a reaction to perceived failure of '68, or you just one of the last remnants, the last crumbs of resistance to what was coming in?
No, not at all. I mean, my relationship with G has been a constant, oh, that's over. Where do we go now? Almost. We don't do it in that way. We do it just by getting on with what we do. But G is absolutely tireless in that respect, as am I, in very different ways. But we really feed off of each other in that sense. That we're unbreakable. We don't believe it's over at all. And if we can't see any proof of that, it doesn't matter at all. Because in the end, it's up to you. There's no authority but yourself. And to become that authority, not to just mimic the words, but to look to that self and become that authority. Because within that idea of self, there is a deeper thing, and that's called love, and that is indescribable.
No, because that's actually the perfect statement. Yeah. I mean, were you quite surprised that Crass were picked up on by 15, 16-year-old punk kids? It actually made complete sense to them.
No, kind of set out just to have some fun, but suddenly had to get a life together, really. I mean, I was still living in New York when we did the first, gigs. I did get some gigs together for them in New York, but and it was such great fun that I thought it was just time to come home and work together again.
I think to pick up on that, I mean, very young kids tell the truth. Well, I can say without question that so did we, and that's why, at gigs you get, look at 12-year-olds. I remember playing in Glasgow, and there was a whole group of 12, 13-year-old lads. And they said, "Where's Eve? Where's Eve?" And, I mean, I could barely understand it because the accent was so extreme. And they rushed off to her, this sort of upper middle class woman who sort of was the vocalist. And it was so beautiful to see it, absolute communion. Because we didn't mess around. We weren't playing at games. We weren't trying to be a band. We didn't believe in the idea of a band, really. The idea was people and getting together with people. And that's what we did. I mean, our gigs were just gatherings, really.
It's a vehicle, Yes,
it's
a vehicle
absolutely.
to meet some people, to up and down the country, and we did tours, the whole fanzine thing exploded. And you could see every time we went back up north to the same places, everybody would come with their new magazines, exchange. It was just a big gathering. And it was really important for us not to have, somewhere behind the stage. We'd always come off the front of the stage at the end of the gig, always. And we always worked in an hour where we could sit with people because it wasn't easy to have gigs. You had a barrage of imagery coming at you. You had black-clad people. You had this music, the sound, the words, the images. It would have been irresponsible not to have been there to kind of answer some of the questions of the very young people who were maybe frightened by it or confronted, or trying to confront something in life that was not quite timely,
But the ideas were amazing, the idea to take people on that trip was quite a trip really, the musically, I mean, this Crass records now 30, 40, it's about 40 years later. There are some great short, sharp punk rock anthems and some are brilliantly multi-layered pieces of avant-garde music. And it can't help make sense to people, which is, I believe that people have much wider sort of taste than was perceived into how far you could push the parameters of what was, loosely termed punk at the time.
Well, I think the other thing is we never treated the audience as idiots. We from the start, it was an intelligent audience. I mean, that's how you treat them. You treat everybody with, respect. You may not quite understand what we're trying to say or do or show or understand the images, but that's got nothing to do with it. It's just you throw it out there and you might understand it a few years later or when you get home or whatever. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I think the important thing is just you're trying to share something and it's there.
I think one of the, I think I can honestly say that Crass, within the sort of rock and roll, pop or whatever traditions, were genuine. I mean, they weren't there for fame and fortune. They were there simply to share ideas and to create ideas. And I remember we had a band called Exit before, which in some respects was more radical than Crass. It was severely avant-garde. It was sort of pretty much, we'd turn up places, set up and play, and some people didn't even notice we were doing it, and other people thought it was a bloody row. And it was sort of guerrilla tactics, largely. But that came about because our house was running, it was running pretty well, a lot of people were turning up. And actually Pete Wright, the bassist from the band, said to me one day, "Yeah, well, it's all right for us, isn't it? What about the people outside?" Because we were quite a comfortable little community. I mean, I remember writing a song about it, growing with organic tomatoes and thinking it was okay. I can't remember the song, but there is a song about that. And so the next thing we did was actually he, Jim and myself did some happenings where we just turn up in local town and do some weird thing on the green, and that was the beginning of the performance of the thing, which has a tradition. And then the band, we sort of got a band together, anyone could join it, and anyone did. We went down to Brighton, and I think there was a staff, what do you call people, players or whatever they were. Anyway, there were about 35 of us. and there was a band which was changing all the time because other people wanted to get on and do it. So the origin, you could say, of how we work sort of grew from that. This idea of, oh, let's just go and do it, and anyone who wants to draw when they can, and blah, 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 blah. So actually it was totally unconditional.
I think that's the way with all his work. You know,
Yes,
we do
yeah.
something and then someone in the audience might suggest something, or we might see something which just take it in another direction. It's got no parameters. It can't have any parameters because every situation is different. You know, and we're different, and every day is different. And, you know, things are moving, the world is moving, so you go with it really, otherwise you're stuck in this, you know. Some people say, well, why don't you do it? It's work like a different person in the market. I'm moving on, I'm up there somewhere else, you know. And it's important for me to, you know, be in the studio doing my work. You know, I haven't been there recently because I went to myself doing it. So, but it's kind of like, it goes where it goes. You just run after it, or you run with it, or you sort of leave it behind and go somewhere else. It's always changing.
That's the purest art, and it's just basically on instinct. Whatever comes to your head, you finish it off. Is that how you kind of operate?
No, not really. I mean, I get in the studio, and I don't, because I want to be in the studio, but I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I could be looking at a blank canvas for a couple of days, or shuffling my paints around, and it takes
Something will come, won't it?
it just takes courage. And if you haven't got the courage, then it doesn't happen. All it needs is a splash of something on a blank canvas, and then you can start.
When you start, sometimes you feel detached from it. You're looking at it thinking, wow, where's this stuff coming from?
No,
Or is it much more practical than that?
I don't think about it.
It just pours out of you, literally. When it does. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm obviously trying to say something, but I can't obviously say that I always understand what I've done. I mean, even looking at the Crass stuff, I look at it and think, and maybe I understand it now.
I always thought that was the point of it, though, that you weren't meant to ask what the hell is that all about. Because it's like throwing question marks out there, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. You know, I think that's the best work does that. It makes you stop, think, you know, how do you relate to it? Do I understand this? But something draws you in, doesn't it? You know, I have that with looking at other people's stuff and reading other people's words, you know, it draws you in. Don't always understand it, but it somehow draws you in and you get something from it eventually.
I think that creativity arrives when you get out of your own way. When you get out of, oh, it's Penny about to do something, that's just not going to happen. And I profoundly believe you get out of your own way and let it happen on its own. I'm just recently working with Honey Bain, and she's been messed around like hell through her life as an artist. And she turned up to the studio last week. I was working the first session. I didn't know where the hell it was going. I've got a fantastic jazz pianist in who I know can adapt to any sound and work out things. Eve came along to offer moral support. And we just went on a journey together, and it's so profound, so beautiful, because she was allowed to be who she is, not who people want her to be, not the sort of pop star of yesteryear and all that sort of stuff. And the tenderness, the vulnerability, and the very, very, very profound feminist voice. There's lots of feminist voices around, but they don't come over to me as particularly profound. They're just sort of moans about how it could be better. This is how it is better. And so that's what I know I look for. I get out of my own way. I persuade anyone who I'm working with to do the same. And if that means I'm just sitting doing nothing for the first 10 hours of the session, fine. Let's get all of the shit out of the way, because behind all that, that's where all the beauty is. Behind our ideas of ourselves, how we want to present us, the person we want to be. It's all bullshit.
Well, it's manipulation, isn't it? You don't want to really manipulate it. I mean, you just want it to be what it is. And that's really hard. It's really hard because for lots of reasons, ego, frustration, or what they want to see, or what they want to hear, and it's hard to get out of the way because suddenly you end up with something and you think, oh, this is never going to stop, like, or whatever. It's just really having the courage to pursue your heart and go with it. Doesn't matter if nobody else believes in it. If you believe in it, then go with it. That's how I like it.
I've always worked, just to pick up on slightly what you said about medical stuff. I mean, I'd really worry if my stuff started taking off. Because Crass didn't, there's this glorious myth that we were a big band in the day. We weren't. Maybe if we turned up at Birmingham, places like that, but we were pretty small scale. And it was really great. It was. I remember doing a gig in some sort of tin chapel in Wales, and I don't know how many people there. It couldn't have been more than 50. And it was in the absolute middle of nowhere, and it was such a beautiful experience. And so I remember I went to one of the early, what do they call themselves, punk academics.
Oh.
And I sat listening to these people who probably weren't there in the day, and at the end of it I was meant to say something, and I said, well, I recommend you stop fucking drinking. What are you fucking talking about? We were working our asses off to play to 20 people in a sort of Nissen hut somewhere.
I mean, we did choose that though. We chose to go to places nobody else would go. They were all the major city ones, and we did some of those. But I mean, really, we went into the backwoods, really, where nobody went. Some of them were just like little tiny chapels, just local people. I mean, if we'd have done that in Birmingham, it's probably not probably. Obviously we have a few hundred come to that, but we made a point of going to the people in all the places that nobody ever went into. And it was really.
Was there a specific reason for that?
Well, nobody went there. And why not? It's kind of because you want the big name in a big place. No, we weren't interested in that.
And there was a conditional thing there. Like people, say from Peter Moore, rang up once and they said, why don't you come and do a big show? And the reaction to all of them, that happened almost all the time, constantly. The reaction was, well, you organise it, we'll come along and do it. And that's how it worked. So they learned how to organise, they learned how to operate, they learned how to deal with all the police hassles, etc., etc. And they, at the end of the year, took the takings for whatever they could be used for, like a woman's centre or a new printer, etc., etc. And that wasn't, it was because we weren't a band, we weren't a rock and roll band, we were we wanted to make friends. Actually, we wanted to make love, so in the truest sense.
Yeah.
And I was going to say that about creativity. Creativity is actually another word for love, and if you don't feel love when you're being creative, you're not being creative. And love is open, and it's absolutely unconditional. It's not love, it's love.
And it takes many forms. It doesn't have to be, the big arts. It can be a fine cup of tea, a nice cake,
Making
Well, you can't, it can be anything, It doesn't have to be, what we see as the creative arts. It's much, much bigger than that.
I have a sort of distaste for doing this sort of thing, to be honest, because we're all in this together. And I don't like doing this, that's why I don't like using these. That's why I don't like not being able to see people.
We did get the barrier down.
Yeah, we did.
Across the stage, and I said, you're joking, you are joking. We're not that important. Like, get away. No, it's horrible.
You might regret it.
No, it's horrible. Just ridiculous, really. But what, we are here to have
And the novel is it.
So the book itself, it really captures an energy at the time. Was that something you're conscious of as well when you were doing the book?
Very much. I think it came out more with bullshit detectives. We reissued one of the bullshit detectives, which I think was a really fantastic, it is a fantastic testament of young people at that time and what they had to say, during the 70s and 80s.
You found that press cutting when we actually released
Oh, yeah.
board cuttings, it's vitriol, fucking load of rubbish, Crass assholes,
I think that was
all that sort of stuff. And now, I don't know whether any of you did see the reviews. Oh, it's the greatest document, the greatest archive of people's movement, and that sort of bollocks. And the
God, you're never happy, are you?
No, I am actually, I can be deeply, deeply happy, and that's when, say, like working with Donna and seeing, or with Honey, I'm just seeing the possibility and persuading those possibilities out, allowing people to be what they are rather than what people want to make them into.
So the creativity is everything, and everything else is kind of a distraction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, love is everything. And everything else is a kind of distraction. Yeah.
That's what saying creativity is love for us. I was going with you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, making bread is sort of a huge act of love. If ever there was one.
Maybe you could do a recipe book next.
We did.
done that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We were going to call it the anarchist cookbook, wasn't it?
It's been done as well.
So we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm sure people out there have got some questions. So this is a bit everyone starting to look at the floor. There's always somebody's got a question. But over there, can you shout?
See?
Oh, he made contact. Oh, you mean for the latest fundraiser for refuge? He contacted us and we didn't know who he was.
Sorry, he was that, so I'm not sure if everyone could hear what he said, so...
I think he is one of the most famous DJs.
Mhm.
Is that right? Yeah. In New York. And I didn't know who it was, he didn't know. And he wanted to remix some of the Crass stuff. So I wrote to my friend who's a very big DJ in New York. I said, who is this guy? And he went, I can't believe it. I said, all right, well, let's say yes then. So yeah, he made contact with us. And did it then.
So how was that process? Really? You just send them parts?
No, it was all put
Yeah,
out
we
and
just-
stems.
Send the stems.
Yeah.
So and that raised about 20,000 because the domestic violence went way up in this country during COVID. And it really came to our attention that it was just getting, really hard for people like the charity refuge. So we think we're doing funding everything.
From that project alone or from several sources?
No, it's from that project.
Yeah. Okay, another question. Why do they owe us a living?
I don't know. I didn't write that one.
I always have to admit,
I've never met them.
I always had a bit of an argument with that. I mean, if you look at the origins of it, were that poem about cutting pheasants' heads off, wasn't it, or something? Do they owe us a living? And yeah, I never quite got it. I mean, they stole it all from us, so we could possibly say that they do. In that sense, I can get the point. Yes, they do, and they actually owe us a damn sight more than they've destroyed so much life, not just in the sort of cash terms. Yeah, they owe us a bloody sight more than they do.
So it does make
They owe us
sense.
an apology, actually.
It doesn't quite scam, but
No.
it's important to have contradictions in Crass as well, you know, like lyrics that everybody could get their head round, or ideas that some of the collective of people are more into than others. I think it's a good thing to have in a creative group. That
Oh, yeah,
have
yeah.
different
Yeah.
opinions, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we were
Only one rule about the press is that if somebody felt really strongly about some of the lyrics in the song, you got to stop. So that only happened.
yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, somebody else wrote it, and it was so bad.
I'll just
Yes,
it
we're not doing
wasn't a political thing. It just
Why
wasn't
not?
good.
One of the lines that, don't ask me, mate, I only work here. I mean, that was the good bit. So,
Yeah, it was.
It was
only
their
one
first
song.
attempt at a song.
Do you let them down like
It did become funny.
And last as well.
Yeah, it was nice.
Yeah, I mean, there was contradictions because, you know, the class differences in Crass were absurd, the age differences were absurd, the gender differences were profound, profoundly operated on, I mean, not profound in the negative sense, in a very positive sense. And so, inevitably, I mean, I learned so much from Steve and G's street savvy. You know, coming from my background, I wasn't too good on the streets. And I think, you know, like my savvy was having been trained to be sort of an admiral or a politician or whatever public school boys are meant to be. I could use that, you know, to balance up. So, I mean, we had such an extraordinary... If we were stopped by the police in those days, it doesn't work anymore, but just my accent, oh, sorry, sir, you know, they'd walk off. If Steve got out, he'd have been in the clink by then. I mean, that's how it works. And I've always seen the privilege that I was given as being able to actually work effectively in that way. To actually oppose the very thing that I was taught to be on its own game, on its own rules, and it works. It doesn't work so much now, because I don't think that there's a more classless society. It's just, I think they got savvy to the fact that, you know, some guys from that place are quite well.
I think it's a strength to have that kind of line up with
Yes,
very
it is.
different people
Yeah.
and find a commonality as well. That
Yeah.
takes
Yeah,
a lot of zen to get to that space.
yes, it does. Yeah.
So one last question. We can ask you over there. Yeah.
Yeah, kind of bits and pieces. Some of those images or photos that I took myself, and then worked it into other bits and pieces. More or less, yeah. Yeah, it's not very big. Quite small. Sometimes the full colour, sometimes not. Just for other things in later stage, see what will happen. But yeah, some of them are colours. Left in my back. They do look like
Everybody
it's a
thought
rotten
they were
trick,
collage.
isn't it?
It was quite mind blowing to find out that some of them weren't collage.
No, a lot of people said that. We just had a show at the Horse Hospital for 3 weeks with all the original artwork and the book launch. That was in April. Yeah, a lot of people were shocked because they were actually talented. Even looking at them, they thought it was a collage. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why I ended up thinking like that. I think really part of it was to draw people into the subject, because some of the subject is quite heavy. to draw people in, they would get very close and then they'd realise what they were looking at. Come back to the thing.
But it works.
It worked.
Okay, one more question. Jamie Reed. Somebody asked about Jamie Reed.
What do I reckon? I knew him and we did a couple of shows together, but you know, we worked in very different ways. Mutual respect.
I guess.
He was tired of what we did. You know, the kids were amazing. He couldn't get away from it. He actually, with his own private work, was looking at it. He got children's hung and quartered by the fiscal stuff. He couldn't escape it from the show.
Okay, so speaking of which, you're going to do it, sign all the Crass books now, aren't you?
No question. Any more questions? No. Yes?
Books. Next. What's next?
What's next? In what sense?
Well, you
I'm
asked.
asking the question, not I.
You're asking the question.
No, somebody asked what's next, and I'm relaying the question. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't understand the question.
If I mean, what's next for you?
For me,
Yeah.
for me, I have some more stuff to bring up to scratch. Because we're reissuing a lot of the singles we did with other bands. There's 3 more left, and you know, it's a matter of scanning the old covers and getting rid of the Chris marks and taking off the Naomi's 50p. We'll take them off because we can't sell them for 50p anymore. Yeah, so that's the project we've been doing, and then I'm going to get ready to do a show in New York in September with a book launch, and with performances by Penn, and yeah, that takes a lot of work. I've got to get a lot of stuff together, and for the gallery, because of insurance, and it's all very good.
So what's the performances that you're doing, Penny? The G's artwork.
I'm working with this avant-garde saxophonist who I used to work with here quite a bit, which is living in New York now. So, no time, you just get up and do it. Yeah. I mean, I like working that way. I just did an album with Eve, and I got 5 players who hadn't played together much, if at all. In the studio, Eve was the only person, she got the lyrics, and my only instruction as producer was have fun. And then we stuck them. It was, again, an amazing result, because people are listening, they're not sort of thinking, oh, I can do my bit here, you know, nothing's planned. So people are being respectful, people get out of the way from each other, they don't try and outdo them. It's so non-competitive, it's incredibly beautiful to see people working together, and the results are always extraordinary. I mean, I'm listening to sometimes, but extraordinary. But like with Crass, I mean, Crass was unlistenable, so I mean, initially. And then suddenly they are listening. I don't understand that.
It's like jazz, isn't it? It's like language.
And I mean,
never liked jazz, but now I love jazz because I've learned the language.
All music's like that.
Yeah,
Once you get the key, it opens up. Although Crass can actually like pop songs as well, which is quite not something you think, is it?
Well, no, I didn't think that.
Well, I would think catchy songs. Yeah. So somebody can write a tight little catchy pop song across the chorus. Yeah.
it's not actually very difficult.
It's
a bit like
it's you all the time, isn't it?
well, I helped a lot of the time. That format is so miserably simple.
Sometimes that's music that
Beggars
chorus.
belief.
You can be complex and simple. That's the great thing about music. isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think the Beatles were brilliant at that, complex but simple.
Well, of course, you met the Beatles and they were really good.
Oh, no, let's get on that.
Okay, well, thanks to Penny and Jean. Yeah.